Hey everyone, it's Dr. Newell, and we're going to go ahead and get started with estimating a product of a fraction. I'm very excited about this because we've been talking about estimation with adding and subtracting, but not necessarily with products, which we know the operation for finding a product is multiplication. So let's get started. First, I want you to take a look at the different ways in which I have written out these problems. We have 1/4 times 13. We have 2/5 of 11. We have 1/3 of 7/9. We have 1/9 times 4/5. There are basically two different problems here. Here we have the multiplication of a fraction, a proper fraction by a whole number. Here we have the multiplication of fractions, okay, proper fractions. All right, so just so we're clear, whenever you see this multiplication symbol, right, there are several ways we can write it. And I just want to go ahead. I feel like it's important to state I can see multiplication like this, I can see it like this, I can see it like this, okay? And I can see it like this, all right? And usually when I see it like this, I may see it more with a fraction. What is 5/6 of 5? It's the same as saying what is 5/6 times 5. That's important for you to know. So if you need to write down this as an example of how multiplication could look, then go ahead, pause the video and write it down because I am going to erase it all. But I wanted you to know that these are all just the same examples of how we can see a multiplication problem. Now we are talking about fractions, so let's go ahead and get into that. If I have 1/4 of 13 and I want to estimate what that could be, I'm going to think about what can I multiply by 4 that is close to 13. Okay. And if I know my facts, then I know that 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16. So if you just look at these factors here, what do I notice? I notice that 12 is the closest number to 13. So my estimate would be I would write out or I would suggest 12, right? And if I need groups of 4, how many groups of 4 will I have? And we can go back here because I kind of wanted to show you that if I had 4 groups, right? I shouldn't say groups of 4. I could say it because I could, but I want to say it this way. How many groups of 4 can I find in 12? If I look here, it shows me that I can find basically I could find 4 groups, but there would be 3 in each group. Okay, so let's go back here. This is going to be 12, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in each of those groups, there will be 3. So if I said now, what is an estimated amount of 1/4 of 13? Like estimating. It looks like 1 unit of that, there would be 3. So I can estimate that 1/4 times 13 is going to give me 3. That's an estimate, right? That's what those little squiggly lines mean, okay? Because 4 does not divide evenly into 13. Now you can pause that and review that if you need to, but I am going to press forward. What if my problem was 2/5 of 11? I'm going to do something similar to what I just did. I'm going to have, I'm using our bar diagram. I have 11 and I need to know how many times can 5 go into 11? Like what is close to that? Well, I think about the number 10, right? Because I know 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15. This is too big. The closest will be 10. So if I know that, right, I am going to make 5 groups. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that's a little crooked, but that's okay because we know it's not going to be perfect. Now, I do want to say that whenever I use my fraction bars or anything and I'm drawing partitions, the goal is to make them as even as possible. But when we're freehand and stuff, it doesn't always work out that way. That's why you like to use that fraction app and math apps. All right, so now I have 5 groups. If I had 5 groups, how many would possibly be in that group? If you said 2, you're correct. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Now, here's the kicker. I don't just want 1/5, because if I said, all right, so what is 1/5 of 11? Well, here's 1/5 of 11. I'm asking for 2/5. So I need these 2 portions here. So what is 2/5 of 11? 2/5 of 11 as an estimate is going to be 2 plus 2, which is 4. You can pause the video if you need to. I am going to press forward because I want to make sure I get through at least one of these other problems over here. So I had a whole number here. I used the bar graph diagram and I found a multiple of 5 that was close to 11, which is 10. And then I sectioned my bar graph into 5 parts and I figured out how many could be in each of those parts. And that is 2. And then it asked me for 2/5 of 11. And so I had to find out how much 2/5 was equal to. Now, let's go ahead and look at what if I have a fraction times a fraction. I know I made you guys a video on how to multiply fractions, but we're just doing estimates here. And one thing that I've figured out about estimates when we're talking about fractions is that we can go to 0, we can go to 1/2, or in this case, we can go to 1. All right, 0, 1/2, or 1. That is what we are looking at as far as rounding and estimating. So if I drew a number line, I like number lines, and I had 1/3. If I broke my line into thirds, this would roughly be 1/3. This would be 0, right? And if I broke it into thirds, I could also break it into halves. This would be 1/2, right? This would be 1/2 because 1/1, right? This is 0 over 1 over, 0 over 1 over here, or 0. Okay. And then we have 1/2 here. This would be 2/3. And if I had to break this into ninths, that would even be different because I would know that this would be the same as 9 over 9, which would mean I would need 9 slashes on my number line here. So 7/9 would potentially be right about here, 7/9, okay? And then halfway would be 4.5/9 because that's the halfway point between 0 and 9. I hope that makes sense. And so if I look at that and I think about 1/3 being here and 7/9 being here, and I had to estimate 1/3 of 7/9, is 1/3 going to be closer to 0, or is it going to be closer to 1/2? Or is it going to be closer to 1/2? What do you think about that? 1/3 is going to be closer to 1/2. So I would round this to 1/2. This is going to be my estimate. And then 7/9. Is 7/9 closer to 1/2? We know it's not closer to 0, or is it closer to 1/2? I can hear you saying, Doc, that's closer to 1/2. So this becomes 1/3 of 7/9 quickly becomes 1/2 times 1 whole, right? And that will be our estimate. And so my answer will be 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 1 is 2. That's 1/2. That's my estimate. Okay. Let me clear this and get us on to our last problem, which is 1/9 times 4/5. All right, this is the last one before we're done. And it is 1/9 times 4/5, or what is 1/9 of 4/5. I've shown you how to use models to multiply, but again, we're estimating. Now think about it without me drawing it out. I could draw it out for you, but if I had 9 notches on my number line, right? If this is 0 over 9 down here and 9 over 9 over here, halfway would be 4.5 over 9, or 4.5 over 9, right? Complex fraction. Where does 1/9 fit on this number line? Is it closer to 0/9, 4/5 of a ninth, which is the halfway point, or 1 whole, which is 9 over 9? If you said 0/9, you are correct. So what about 4/5 of a ninth? I'm sorry, not 4/5 of a ninth. What about 4/5? If I had to break this into 5 parts, this same number line, and usually I would use a double number line to show you, but I'm going to go ahead and use this here. If this was 5 over 5 and this was 0 over 5, halfway would be 2.5 over 5. What is 4/5? Where is that on this number line? 4 over 5 would be close, right? Right about here. This would be 4/5. So my estimate would be 0. Uh-oh, that got a little weird. But it would be 0 times 1 instead of 1/9 times 4/5. I hope you understand why. If this is 0/9, 1/9 is going to be this close, right? And I'm going to round down. It's not close enough to 1/2. It's definitely not close enough to a whole. So my problem would end up being 0 times 1, which is 0. That's my estimate. So 1/9 times 4/5 is an estimate of 0. I want you to practice. Go ahead and do your practice work and work with a buddy on the first few pages, because I believe that'll make it a lot simpler for you guys to understand. Remember, as we are dealing with fractions, we are working towards either a 0, half, or 1 whole. And if you need to better understand how to set up number lines for fractions, come see me. You know I love it. Ciao for now.